you can't just decide to do something because it's always easy. There are going to be fundamental things about teaching yoga that will challenge you at your very core, especially things like putting yourself out there. All of those insecurities that you have, maybe you were working in a corporate job, all of a sudden you're right in front of everyone sharing exactly who you are. It's beautiful because if you work through that, then you do get closer to being comfortable with who you are.
To my podcast, Yoga with Alina, the coffee break. And guys, today I have a guest that I've been trying to get on the podcast for since August, I think.
We've been chatting for a bit.
Yes, it was coming together for a while. But yes, this is Bri, and she's an incredible yoga teacher, incredible person, and one of my teachers, because I did take her teacher training a bunch of years ago, actually, at this point. And yes, I'm actually just going to hand the mic over to you right now. Just introduce yourself. I'm pretty sure most people who are watching or listening to this podcast, they have heard of you, at least at some point of their life, but still, introduce yourself. Go for it.
Thank you, Alina. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Bri, or Briohny Smyth. And what am I? I guess I am a yoga teacher by trade. And I've been in this industry for quite some time now. And my company's name is Aligned Yoga. So check it out. We are an online yoga school platform. We do 200-hour, 300-hour, even 30-day intensives for yogi practitioners and yoga teachers. And you're right. We did meet when you did my 300-hour or 200.
Yeah,
it was 300, right?
Yeah.
I think it was the last in-person event that I did. And then, my business crumbled because of something that we all have experienced, COVID. And it was actually a wonderful opportunity, but we'll get into all of that later.
Yes. So, yeah, basically a lot of people who are listening and watching, so my audience, let's put it that way, the majority are new yoga teachers, let's put it that way. So people who are just starting out on their teaching journey, and a lot of questions. I try to go, different tracks and explore different topics in my podcast, and not only. But the majority of questions I still get is about how to become a successful, let's put it that way, yoga teacher, and how to become an entrepreneur in the yoga world, I would say that. And honestly, you were the very first person who I heard talking openly about the business side of yoga. And back then, it inspired me so much because I'm not scared to talk about the business part of it. And a lot of yoga people, yoga teachers as well, they are. And I feel like it's just so confusing for many new teachers. And I would love to kind of open the subject a little bit more. So that's the main thing that I really want to chat with you. With that said, this podcast is just basically us chatting. So if the conversation goes somewhere else, I'm fine with that. And I'm always open to it. But the business side of it is what I really want to pick your brain about. And yeah, just the first question for you would be, can you do you have any milestones that you can remember how your career was building to where it is today? So how did it all start, and what were the milestones that you knew, okay, oh, this is the new level for me, oh, this is the next level, and what was happening there? Tell me.
Well, good question. So many milestones. And I think it's important, especially since your audience are mainly new teachers, to celebrate the small wins. And that could mean getting to sub a class of a teacher that you really like at a studio that you really like, or even sooner, earlier than that, getting to somebody to pay for your services, because I teach teacher trainings for the most part. That's my passion. I love, seeing, helping, guiding people move from, passionate about practicing yoga to wanting to teach. And that, evolution is beautiful and amazing, but it does come with the reality of the fact that it's not just, ooh, wow, all of a sudden I get to travel the world and teach and be, have this flexible life as a yoga
Yeah.
teacher shows on Instagram. It's a lot of hard work. For me, that first milestone, I would say, was exactly what I just said. First, having somebody say, hey, I really like your classes, or, a friend say, I want to continue doing this free private lessons. What can I pay you? Or even coming to a point where I'm asking to be paid. That's really important. So celebrate those small wins. I always say the first step is to start teaching. The second step is to become a part of a community. And whether that means to frequent a teacher's class or frequent a studio, or even be consistent online with Instagram, sharing your knowledge, that is really important, because when you're consistent with a community, you build trust, you build credibility with them. And that's how you build who they see you as, in terms of a teacher, right? A leader in your community.
Yeah.
So those were my milestones, was like being consistent, showing up, asking for what I want. That's so important. So many people just think, okay, if I show up, things will happen. And yeah, sometimes they do. And for me,
Rarely.
I got yeah, for me, I got lucky with timing in a lot of ways, but I also worked extremely hard. And, it wasn't my first rodeo. I had been a pop star coming from nothing to being famous in my early teens. I quit that. I was in fashion, started all over. So I'd started all over 3 times before I had started teaching yoga. So it was already at a point in my life where I was tired of being new at something and starting from zero and paying to teach. And
But you still
but I
have
did it
to.
anyways.
Yeah, you still have to.
You have
How
to.
long was that period of, building that community and just starting, like, the starting step? How long did it last for you?
3 years,
3 years?
but not without advancement.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a very social person, but I made myself social.
It is very
I hung out with
important.
people. Yeah,
It is. I
networking
actually
is quite
don't like.
important.
I'm one of those people. I don't really like to socialize that much. It
Yeah.
comes off as if I do, but not really. And it is. I have to like make a point to go to events, but I've learned that it's so important to just get your face out there and meet people in the community, and
Hmm.
just let them get to know you outside the class setting, because I
Hmm.
feel like just teaching yoga, it doesn't really, it does give us an opportunity to connect, but at, let's say, like different yoga events, wellness events, you get to do that on such a deeper level, and it's absolutely priceless. It took me,
Absolutely.
I didn't do it for many years actually, and this is now when people are asking, I'm like, hey, just that's how you should start doing it from the very beginning for sure. Okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it takes, I relate to my daughter's 18, and what I see in their generation, and just in general, all of us on social media, we get to see people living lives, and it's typically very fluid and seamless, the way that it's presented. And I think it creates this fantasy that, oh wow, I'm currently struggling or not happy in the line of work that I'm doing right now, whether it be whatever, finance or real estate or the service industry. Oh wow, teaching yoga looks like it benefits you on so many different levels, right? It's wonderful because you're surrounding yourself with this beautiful, philosophy and lifestyle. Second, everybody that I follow on Instagram just seems to be leading these amazingly easy lives, and I want that. And part of what I teach, especially online, but this in my in-persons, is, guys, this is an entrepreneurial job. It's not fine and dandy. Even the influencers who are seemingly living this amazing life in our industry are working extremely hard, as you know, creating content and being consistent on social
And it
media
is a full-time
is a
job. And if you're also,
full-time
for
job.
example, teaching yoga on top of that, that's another full-time job. And
It's
then
giving a lot of energy.
you
Yeah.
have so many
So it's
full-time
making
jobs on
sure.
your hands.
Yeah. It's making sure that when you get into something, you understand the full scope of it. And it's not as easy as it seems, because you are constantly putting yourself to the forefront of what you're doing, whether it's presenting a class. I don't like to say presenting or sharing a class, but you know, you are in a sense performing, because
I always
regardless of
say I
what you
feel like
have
I'm on
going on,
stage when I'm teaching a class. That's
yeah.
like being on stage, and that's part of the way I like it. I actually do enjoy that.
And then the challenge there is to be like, okay, it is a performance because you have to turn a button on, but then how do you bring it back into being human and communicative and sharing who you really are? Because for me, coming from performance for many years, I was like, okay, guys, da 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 da, and it was just a performance, and it didn't feel real enough, especially as I came into teaching trainings. I needed to be more. Oh, my headphones are dying. I needed to be more myself. So, to answer your main question of milestones and you know how how they affect you, is that it's I think the biggest milestone is realizing that this is a full spectrum entrepreneurial job, career for people, and there are certain qualities in a person that make it easier,
Mm.
or make it harder. And you have to know that this is what I was talking about with generational things, is that you can't just decide to do something because it's always easy. There are going to be fundamental things about teaching yoga that will challenge you at your very core, especially things like putting yourself out there. All of those insecurities that you have, maybe you were working in a corporate job, all of a sudden you're right in front of everyone sharing exactly who you are. It's beautiful, because if you work through that, then you do get closer to being comfortable with who you are. But it's also extremely scary for a lot of people.
It is. It definitely is. And so many things that go behind the scene, and not even behind the scene, they're kind of internal things that are happening that people don't realize. And all of that is like, it becomes part of this job. And it just piles so many layers on top of that. It's crazy. I am sometimes struggling because I'm on social media all the time, and I look through a lot of things and I'm like, how does that person get to be so lucky? Come on. And then
Lucky.
I know. And then I'm like, okay, well, the person probably is working their ass off right now doing like content, and you're sitting on the couch here and thinking about them being lucky. So that's like constantly pulling myself back into this reality. I'll be honest that it is a struggle sometimes, because you want things to be
Mhm.
easy. Like you want things to just be like they are.
But, the moment they're easy, you have to wonder what you're doing wrong,
Mm.
because especially with social media, the moment you feel like you have a groove, things change. We're dealing not just with algorithm, like put the algorithm aside. We're working with people's attention span and their digestion, their ability to digest content. So the moment they've seen the same thing a few times, it becomes boring. I know I'm
Mm.
probably the most ADD, consumer of social media. I'm like, done, boring, seen it. So yeah, it's I don't want to make any of your followers feel like, oh my gosh, this is scary. No, I think it's a wonderfully fruitful opportunity to really grow. And that's why I love this, because it's, it's all of the things we talked about: entrepreneurship, branding, marketing, but you're also on a path to really sharing, for lack of a better term, you, right?
Yeah.
And that requires you to find your voice. And so many people are like, oh, how do I find my voice? Teach me. And really, it's an internal job.
I would say it
When
comes
I
from a personal practice. That part is actually so
Yeah.
important for new teachers to have that, to build that personal practice, because that's how you will find your voice. I feel like at least that's how it was that's how it still is for me. I don't think that you all like fully completely find your voice without changing it ever again. So the personal practice is what keeps you growing and keeps you kind of like,
The
that's how you
beginner
get to
voice, yeah.
that's how you get to know
The beginner
yourself.
voice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
well, I think it also gives you confidence because what you're doing when you're a young teacher is that you're teaching from your practice. That's
mm-hmm.
why so many new teachers feel more confident on their mats when they're teaching because they're feeling it in their body. It's that newness to the mind body connection. And that's what makes it exciting too. Like, oh, I'm learning this, let me share that. For me later, and that was a really great milestone for me as well. Later on, it was more, maybe that 300-hour student where, okay, now I'm teaching, now I have momentum. I feel like and I have a solid foundation. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I want to bring in a bit more into my teachings. I don't really know what that is. Well, honestly, for me, that milestone was when I started to be able to understand the difference between teaching and communicating and sharing. Right?
Okay.
Teaching is when you're like, repeating the cues that you've heard, you're, cueing people through things, you're interested in different alignment cues. And communicating and sharing is when, okay, those things are, I can do it with my eyes closed. Now, how do I get my students to actually be interested in what I'm saying? So you
Mm-hmm.
can't repeat cues anymore. You can't be a robot because you're frankly bored of the sound of your own voice. That's how I feel. Like what I've been teaching online to a camera for 10 years. And if you watch some of my videos, I'm like talking to myself or, doing a dance and being like, sorry, but, this is what entertains me. And if I keep on reciting my cues, I'm going to be bored to death. So that's the next milestone later on.
Okay, so but how do you communicate though? Like what is that difference? What is that?
The difference to me is knowing, like, even if you're teaching to a camera or teaching to a class, maybe you're coming into a pose and you smile to yourself. You're teaching them into a pose. You smile to yourself like, oh, I remember when I thought this pose to be difficult or I hated it, or when I misunderstood this pose. And you put them in it and you say, oh, maybe you think this, maybe you think that. This is just an example. But actually take a moment, look at me. It's actually this. Or when you start being able to give what I call reinforcement cues. So, meaning you put someone into something, you cue their body to engage in it, and then you say, you know why you're doing this? You're doing this because of that. It's when you're able to give the why behind
Mm,
something that I think you really turn on people's interest. Because it's hard as a practitioner to listen to everything. And no matter how talented a teacher is, you're going to lose people's interest at some point because people are in their heads.
yes.
So it's being able to not have to like keep going in your rhythm of things because that makes you comfortable. It's also being comfortable with silence and not like constantly talking and just
Mm-hmm.
changing it up. I love just stopping a class and being like, okay, let's look at this. Or, you know, telling a short story or making them laugh because I know that they're listening and that they're present. And that's communicating, right? Getting people to be present, to get out of their heads, get out of the, I already know this pose, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and be
So
there with
essentially
you.
just becoming more of a human being rather than just like the machine
Human
that,
doing.
yeah.
Yeah.
The machine that is talking cues, like just really going like sharing your personality and like sharing your, well, given that you do have the understanding, right, your understanding of the practice, like sharing that is what
Yeah.
kind of puts you on this next level, next step. I don't know how to
Sure.
put
I
it.
mean, it's also being present and reading the room, which is really impossible to do when you're just recording a video.
It
So,
is
but in,
impossible, but in the room
can't really
it's, yeah.
read the room, but you can think, when I do, practices for online, I do like to think about them, whoever's practicing with me in their house, listening to this recording and going along with me. When it gets difficult, I acknowledge it. When it gets silly, I acknowledge it. You're just trying to keep them interested. But reading the room when it comes to yoga classes, it's like, it's not just about telling a story because you planned it. It's not just about doing a flow because you planned it. You don't just stop because you planned it. If they're into it and they're moving, you're feeling the energy, you keep it going. If people are confused and they're like, it's too hard, you see that, you stop, right?
I actually did have to stop a class a couple of weeks ago. I had to stop a class like completely. I'm like, all right, we're resetting the whole thing here because we're just not.
Exactly.
It was the weirdest. I hate that feeling when you just you're there but you feel so disconnected from people in the room. And then, and that's when I was like, all right, that's it. I think I cannot do it. Like, personally, I cannot. So we're stopping. We're kind of like trying to connect here and then keep going. And it actually turned out to be good. Like, the second part of the class was actually really good. I can't say anything about the first one.
Good on you for making it through. You can't just like stop
hard.
The class, run out of the room crying either.
I know. But at some point I was like, I don't even feel like being here anymore because I don't think that I'm doing anything like valuable to these people. But yeah, I was like, all right, we're gonna reset. That's not how this class is gonna end. So yeah, and it turned out to be a pretty cool class eventually, the second part. Before we dive deeper into the episode, just a little reminder for you guys to check out yogawithalina.com for my full library of yoga classes, tutorials, courses, and so much more. And for your convenience, I optimized all the classes for all devices so that you can flow through the flows from your phone, computer, TV, whenever, wherever you want. Start your free trial today and test it all out. I hope to see you on the mat very, very soon. Let's dive deeper into the episode.
That reminds me of this sort of feeling that I bring up in my teacher trainings, because if you have taught, you've probably experienced this, where like you're in your own head. And I always talk about that one person, I remember back in the day, I'd teach in-person classes, and sometimes I'd feel insecure, right? And I'd catch the eye of someone who's practicing and they look unhappy. And I'd think, oh my God, they hate my class. My class is terrible. And, I'd get through it. But the whole time I'm thinking about, oh my God, this person hates my class, blah, blah. And at the end of it, they're like the one person who comes up to say,
one person who
I loved your class.
I was about to
we've
say
all experienced that.
It's always like that.
In our head.
Especially when I first just started, like after my very first 200-hour teacher training, that's how I felt. I felt like people were hating me in the room. And usually those people who I thought were hating my class the most, they were the one who would come up to me and like, yeah, really, really keep me going and just say like, yeah, you're doing amazing. And I was always very open. I was always saying that, hey, like I'm, just starting here. So, bring on any comments. But yeah, it was always so cool. And I learned it. I tell this to everyone. So yeah, somehow the person with the meanest face is your biggest fan. So
it just goes to show that what you think in your head, especially when you're insecure, which we all have it. I have insecurities all day long. It's not always the truth. And, the longer you can sit with your insecurities without reacting to them, the more you're able to control, or decide how you'd like to react to them, which a lot of times is don't react at all.
Yeah, usually.
Yeah.
All right. So teaching in-person classes like studio and stuff like that, what was your next step? Was it teaching workshops? And I mean, I know you were traveling a lot back in the day for workshops.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I did.
Happen?
Well, my personal story is such where I started teaching in LA when all of a sudden, this is old history, but there is a donation-based studio here called Power Yoga, and it's owned by Brian Kest. And it was donation-based. It was a big deal. And there were all these great teachers there. And at the time I was practicing at Yoga Works, did my teacher training at Yoga Works. But as soon as I started teaching, all of these teachers left Power Yoga and started their own donation-based studios. So it was a crazy time because everyone in Santa Monica was a freaking yoga teacher. And they were all amazing and beautiful and female. So I couldn't get a job to save my life. But I still, I paid to teach. I rented the donation based studio. I would show up, I would teach. Donation based means, there's a box, people show up, they don't have to pay. And it's a suggested donation of $6 a class. So I was never even breaking even. And I did that for about a year as a single mom as well. My daughter at the time was 4 years old or something. I'd just gone through a very expensive, very traumatic divorce custody battle, legal suit, blah, blah, blah. And I met my second husband, Dice, right, shortly after that. Like, gorgeous, talented, famous teacher in Santa Monica, always taught with his
So
shirt
at that
off.
time, he was already well known.
He was well known because, not because he's a great teacher, but also, in LA at the time, to have a gorgeous, shirtless, straight man teaching yoga was, kind of like a new thing. So, we were all going to his classes. And when we started dating, I basically would like follow him around to all of his classes and practice 2-3 times a day. So this is why I say, like, become a fixture, become a constant fixture in a community. And it will make it so that, you can talk to that teacher, tell that teacher you'd like to sub, because that's what I did. And it worked. Of course I was dating the guy, but
that helps.
I went to all of his classes and really, advanced my practice because I was practicing so often, but then knew the community and knew the yoga studios and started teaching at those same studios. The first studio was Black Dog Yoga in the Valley here. And, later on we became co-owners of that studio. So that was interesting. But then it was when I started, yeah, that's why when I say, oh, you want to become a studio owner? Well, this is what you need to know. But it was when I started teaching for Equinox that I really felt like it was a separate milestone because, I came from teaching for paying to teach to teaching for pennies. And Equinox really took care of you. You got paid the highest in the industry. You had health care. It was like a whole different level.
I love Equinox. I mean, I'm with Equinox now, and I honestly, I love them so much. Like, this is
they really take care of you. And one of the big things too is that it gives you a bit of a relief from having to get people into your class because they take care of that with the memberships. Your job then becomes just keep coming back and getting them to come back. But through that Equinox experience, which was funny because at first when Dice's students had told the manager, like, hey, Bri, I should start teaching here. Can you audition her? The regional manager, who's the most lovely person, said, no, I've, auditioned her before and she's not for us. And I was like, what? I never auditioned there. And it turns out he was thinking of Dice's ex-girlfriend. So after months of confusion, I got the gig, and maybe 6 months in, Equinox had started a blog called Q-Blog. And their whole thing was, let's capitalize on YouTube, with videos, and let's make videos about all the different modalities. And one of them was me. It was called The Contortionist. And, overnight it accumulated 1 million views. And it was just like, oh my God.
That's like back in the day when, YouTube was just becoming
just starting out. Yeah. And it was one of the first platforms for sharing. There was Facebook, but for us in the yoga community, it really was the first time that we thought, oh my God, wait, we can share practice videos on this platform and see where it goes. And from there, we started, so Dice and I, we started getting all of these inquiries to teach all over the world. My career in Thailand had been reignited because yoga was now a huge thing there. So after the Equinox video, I traveled and taught for almost a decade just off of that. So timing, luck, a bit of hard work.
I mean, I don't
And
like to say that anything is like luck, right? Because you had to do so much to be in that place, to be in that time. So in a lot of ways, yes, it did come together, but there's so much work that happened like pre this whole thing that, yeah, it's hard to just say that it's luck. But yeah, timing apparently was great.
yeah, you know what I like to think of is there are these waves of opportunity that come into your life. And when you commit yourself to being as present as possible with these sorts of opportunities and not letting self doubt, insecurities get in the way, then you can be lucky enough to ride that wave. And I've had quite a few of those opportunistic waves in my life, and I've not always been present for them. So now I really live my life based off of that, being present for the small wins, the big wins, celebrating them, learning from the failures, because we're talking about all of my opportunities here, but I have failed so many times in my life. Lost money, lost friends, lost, oh my gosh, so many things. I would say I've failed more than I've succeeded, but those failures have taught me a lot, because not that I welcome the obstacles, but I make sure now that I'm learning from them.
What do you consider like your biggest failure in your yoga career? If you can share it, I don't know.
I put $250,000 into a business and gone.
Mm.
That was a lot of freaking money. And it was money that I worked so hard to save. And I really, when I invested, I believed so wholeheartedly. And fuck it, I'm going to say it, and I basically got swindled. And it was so not cool. It made it really difficult for me to continue trusting and loving friends who were involved in that. And it broke my heart too, because I fantasized this whole thing like, oh, it's going to be like this and it's going to be like that and it's going to make all this money. But I learned too. And what I learned was that structure of business is extremely not lucrative. It's like so much work, so much capital. I'm talking about events and festivals goes into it for so little return. And let's talk a bit about that return. It's been going on for so long, this like feeling of guilt behind making money in our industry. And I have, been in so many different communicative spaces about it, be nice about it or try to ease people. I'm going to tell you right now, it's fucking bullshit. You should not invest your money for your education, your time, and your energy into a career if you don't feel comfortable with being paid for it. And if somebody is going to make you feel bad about it, get them out of your life. It's not cool. If they want to, if they have,
it has
their
to be
savings,
an exchange. You can't just do things, for the sake of like, it has to be an exchange.
Yeah, but I don't think energetic exchange is enough either.
No,
ultimately, in the end, like that person is taking advantage of you. And I invested 10 grand into my yoga education and my certifications. You can come say hi. So I sure as hell am not going to be okay with someone guilt tripping me into not feeling bad. This is my son feeling bad about making money from it. Like,
is this your podcast?
Yes, this is Alina. You met her, but you were way smaller.
Yes.
This is Sid. Plus,
we met
I have little ones,
Yeah.
We all have responsibilities in our life, so.
And also, you have a little one who has 100,000 slap battles.
High five. That's great.
Yeah,
sure, whatever. You want to show her your slap?
As you can see right there.
Oh.
Slap counting 100,000.
Okay, what is the game though?
He plays Roblox.
Okay.
Yeah, and he plays something called Slap Battles. Roblox is a very interesting platform. Uh-oh.
What?
We're recording, and it's going to be on YouTube. You can watch this later, but it can't have like bing bong sounds.
It's going to be on YouTube. When?
I don't know when.
It's going to be on Monday, actually.
Platform.
Do they even know how good this club
is? As for kids, you do have to
Did they ever know how good this club is? Did they ever know? Do they ever know?
Let's give mommy a time to finish, and then we'll play together. Love you. Not in here, though. Oh, okay. Shut the door. My AirPod just died.
Oh,
Hold on. Let me go plug it in
okay.
so that we can have better sound in a second.
That's good. No, I mean, I can still hear you pretty well.
No charger. Is this sound okay?
Mm-hmm.
You can hear. Is it okay without the AirPods?
Yeah, I can still
Okay.
hear you. It's good. Yeah.
Okay.
And from what I hear in this, I think it's good. I don't know.
Hold on.
We'll bring it up in the editing process if we need to.
Okay.
But yeah.
We were talking about the money thing. Now, that said, like, I know I could be harsh, I could be nice. I still know that it's hard for people sometimes. And yeah, you could call it an energy. There's an exchange of energy, but what I like to say is remember that you're offering something of value, right? All you have to do is remember how much value yoga gives you in your life. And so when you're offering that to other people, that value is there. You just have to believe that, right? That you have value, and therefore it's okay to charge for that value you're offering, because
again, the yoga teacher trainings are expensive. They are not cheap at all. And yeah, I think I want to say I've spent more than 10 grand on my trainings. And after a certain point, I was like, there's just no way I'm not going to charge for that, because that knowledge costed money.
Exactly. I mean, that's just like the tip of the iceberg, actually. That's like the first piece, but like the amount of time, the amount of hats that you wear as a yoga teacher, whether it be on the yoga side, when it comes to therapist, friend, private clients, and planning the classes, but also on the side of running your business, whether you're doing admin with your newsletters, or you've got a group of people on WhatsApp or Facebook or Instagram, or even you're doing your social media, all of that is part of your job. It's something that, people always ask me, like, do I have to do social? And I say, well, I mean, it's up to you. But, if the idea is to cultivate connection with your community, you could do that just in person, but why not also do it outside of the yoga room?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I schedule as my job, for example, my workouts, I put it as a part of my job, because whether we want it or not, like the way we look affects, a lot of things. And one of them is how much we're being paid as well. And then also just maintaining the health part. I realized at some point that I do need to have vitamin IVs, like at least once a month. With the amount of
vitamins once a month?
At least once a month. The IV.
Oh, the IV. I was like, you only take vitamins once a month?
No. I take vitamins every day. But by the way, I went over this year, I went from a person not taking any supplements and any vitamins to someone who at some point was taking, like, I don't know, 10 different pills every morning.
I mean, look, it's not out from the outside. You don't realize it, but the most common thing that yoga teachers tend to end up feeling is adrenal fatigue. And it's something that I think comes from, when you're young, you can kind of spread yourself thin. And I did that for years and years and years. And now it's like, if I don't take care of myself, and that means eating right, that means working out, looking good is important, because I don't really care about what people think how I look, but when I look good, mainly I feel good.
You feel good.
And so
that's the reflection.
And I can't be sometimes I'll go a month or two without doing anything because I'm busy. I'm working on a launch. I'm like busy with my kids, traveling, whatever. And I'll feel sore from not moving my body. And that's a weird kind of sore. It's like wow, this is not comfortable.
I had an experience a few months ago, had like a little modeling job, and it was 12 hours. But it was a video shoot, so it was actually 12 hours of just sitting around. I think like my part was like maybe 10 minutes in the very beginning, and then honestly the rest was just 12 hours of just sitting. I felt like I was hit by a truck the next morning. And I'm like, what is wrong with that? Because I couldn't move at all. And then I had a private class scheduled for that day. And I'm like, I kind of wish I can cancel it right now because I'm not sure if I can move. But then when I started moving in that class, when I saw my student and I started moving, I was like, wow, now I'm starting to feel much better. So it's actually a thing. Being sore from not moving. It is a thing. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And because I guess our bodies are also so used to the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. It's I mean, coming back to that idea of staying healthy and taking care of yourself, it's a really difficult balance, especially whenever, not just when you're starting out, but when you're working really hard, especially in the yoga industry. I find a lot of teachers get this guilt, like, wow, I need to work so hard to support myself that I barely or don't even have the time, let alone the energy to practice. And sometimes I don't even want to practice. I can't even think of yoga. I'm just yoga, 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 yoga all day, every single day. There was a point in my career where I was like teaching 35 sessions a week. And, that was like the pinnacle of I think where I pivoted, because I thought to myself, first, I'm a single mom. I've always been a single mom 2 times around now. So working hard was like just something I did because I needed to pay for school tuition. I needed to, just pay for a roof over our head and food. But then I also thought, wow, I'm maxed out driving, teaching. I can't go beyond this. This is like my max, no days off, no time off. And I'm making what, 50 grand a year? There has to be something different. Like there has to be, I want to keep doing this. I like this, but this is not scalable.
So this is when the teacher trainings came. Well, I guess the workshops kind of before that, but then the teacher trainings.
Well, that was, I kind of, the teacher trainings weren't on my radar during that time. I knew I wanted to try teaching them, but I also thought I'm not ready. There's that feeling like, okay, I've just basically only been a teacher for how long? But it was the Equinox video that helped us start teaching abroad. And, we would go and teach to 200 people, sometimes 20 people, but, we'd go for a weekend and we'd come back and had made $5 grand, something like that. Mm-hmm. And it was good. It was great. I mean, coming from making 50 grand a year, very, very different. But, it's like my son was born and a month later we were on the road. And when I say on the road, we were traveling like every other weekend, international, domestic. It was insane, but wonderful because that's how I cultivated.
From the outside, it looks so glamorous and it looks so amazing. I am realizing that it was probably really, really hard to just, I don't know, even just stay awake, for crying out loud.
I'm one of those people that's like, oh, this is what I have to do. I'm going to do it. So in the moment, it was like way better than busting my ass. It's like, okay, this is a different level.
And it was also
like
two of you, right? It was also like 2 of you. So it was kind of like, support, bouncing off that energy as well.
So. Lots of fun. We had a lot of fun and saw the world. My son's passport was full at like 3 years old. He got a passport at 1 month. We never stopped traveling. And now he's one of those kids.
It sucks that he doesn't remember that. He probably doesn't remember that part though. That sucks.
Not really. Not really. But we had the opportunity to start teaching trainings. And in the prep for that, and of course, I'm the person who's like, okay, yes, let's do everything. And I remember, I always tell a story to people we know because who know Dice, my ex. He's not like me in a sense where someone's like, hey, so can you do this? And I think to myself, I've never done it. But then I also think to myself, I'm sure I could. And then I say yes. And so the Equinox people came to us and to me, they're like, so can Dice do paddleboard yoga? And I was like, in my mind, well, he's never done it, but I'm sure he could. So I say yes. And I tell him, I'm like, oh, we're going to go to New York, in a month and you're going to do yoga on a paddleboard. And he's like, what? I don't even know how to do it. He was so pissed at me. And I'm like, what do you mean? You can totally do it. And because he was pissed at me and we tried it over and over again here in the marina, he really couldn't do it. You know, it was just like that was the problem in our relationship. Like, we're both contrarians. He ended up doing a really good job. But
Can I
every
just
time
cut
I
you off just for a second? Because I had literally, again, just it just was like, what, I don't know, 2 weeks ago maybe. One of my modeling agencies sent a job over, and they're like, yeah, this is like, I don't even know what that was for, but apparently they needed a person who can do yoga on a pedal board, which I've never done a yoga on a pedal board. And I come in, and what I had to do, I had to like do a couple of yoga poses, and then it was like the interview on camera, which I'm pretty confident on camera, I'm fine. And they were asking all these questions about how I was like, when, how, where I was doing yoga on pedal board. And I was just coming up with those weird stuff, and I didn't get the job, which I was actually kind of happy about, because I don't know what would have happened. But that was exactly what
happened is you having to do yoga on a paddleboard, and you know, it's fine. You should Google that if you're watching this and you're like, I need to see this. Google, I think it's Equinox paddleboard yoga. And it looks great. He does a great job, but his face, he's so mad and like so tense because he's put out of his comfort zone. I don't know why I'm talking about this, but nonetheless, you know, doing things that scare you are important, and teaching teacher trainings at first scared me, but in the prep, I knew I had this feeling. I was like, I really like this. This is something that I think I want to focus on. And it had a number of reasons. One, the passion behind teaching at this level to this group of people, right? People who want to move into a space where I currently am. But also I saw it, because I'm a business person, I saw it as a way to have a lifestyle that I wanted to have, which, you know, as well as a scalable business. So I worked really hard on that.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely far away from teaching teacher trainings, but that's something that's, you know, like in the distant future for me. I really want to do it. And I think that it's just probably once you get to that level, I would assume it's really rewarding. Like it's one of the most rewarding things, because you actually get to see how people are growing, like not just in their practice, in their life. And I don't know, but I see it as a very, very rewarding career evolution. Can we say that? I would say that. Yeah.
Definitely. It is very rewarding because you're forced to just work on yourself. Every time I teach a teacher training, I have a self-realization or a transformative experience. And it's also because these are very transformative experiences, you know, doing the in-person trainings. I developed an online training because of my experiences with in-person trainings. They're great, but they're not full spectrum enough. You know, I feel like people come to them and they want to learn all these things. And then in a very short amount of time, which it is, 26 days to learn all of this methodology and technique is not possible. So that was my next business. And I'm so happy that we're doing it, because it's just so much,
like online teacher trainings. How has it been for you? Like, because I feel like it's so, I don't know, it's difficult on both sides. I would assume it's very difficult from a teacher side. I've never taken an online teacher training as well, so it scares me. In a lot of ways, it scares me. How has it been?
Here's the thing. You know, taking an in-person training gives you this in-person practical, but also transformative experience, because it's so hard. It's so hard on your body. It's so hard on your mind. And you know, it's different. What I always found was missing from those is that people arrive with all different levels of understanding of the foundation. And when I say foundation, like, what do you need to know as a yoga teacher? You need to understand the poses, the why, the how, right? And the muscles in the body. You need to understand basic cueing ideas. And when people arrive from all different understanding levels, as a teacher, as a course producer, it takes
more than 70% of the time together to get them on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
So then typically they're just starting to understand the foundations right before the end.
Yeah.
And then, the growth happens on their own. And for me, I've always thought, God, this is not effective. It's not an effective way of learning. And even before COVID, I had this dream of being able to put in video all of the practical technique methodology that I've been teaching, so that make it a prerequisite, so that at least they've done that and they understand the core of the foundations that I just spoke about. And when they arrive, now we can move into the practical stuff, help them with their practice teaching, help them with their handstands, whatever they want to learn, help them with their adjustments. And that's really being helpful and growth oriented when it comes to beginning to teach yoga or moving into honing your skills as a teacher, like a 300-hour. So I wasn't really that excited when COVID came and threw a wrench into my entire business.
Yeah.
It was really freaking scary because, as I said, I was running in-person trainings. I had an event business. And over the course of 3 months, basically from February to May, of 2020, we had to refund almost $500,000.
Oh,
And, we had this decision to make. We were like, okay, maybe we keep the money so that I don't have to fire my entire team and close my business. And we just keep pushing it out. Like, okay, we're going to have the teacher training later in the year. We're going to have the teacher training in 2021. And I just had a bad feeling about it. So I said, no, it's not the right thing to do. Everyone has no work. We're going into this crazy time. Just give them back their money and we'll figure it out. We'll put it online. And so in 3 months, I worked on basically how to download all this freaking knowledge I have in my head into digestible, succinct video format. And it was like, my team's grown since then, but my core team, we still look back on that time like, wow, we can do it, but we never want to have to do that again. It's just like, I recorded 2,000 videos
Oh my God.
in like 4 weeks. And I'm just like, we have to do this or we're going to sink,
Oh my God.
And how was it? I mean, I felt I feel terrible saying this, but I like being honest. It was the best financial year I had in my life.
Mm.
We're a pivot business.
But also, hey, that's like, okay, with all honesty, probably took a lot of investment to create all those videos as well, right? Because
For sure.
I do videos as well, and I know that it does not come for free. No,
of course not. But you know what I realized at that time, we talk about the universe and signs and things, and I don't live my entire life on that, but because I try to be present, you notice it. And I realized that as I was doing it, I had everything I needed.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have a best friend who does production. I have an editor. I was like, I have one of my dearest friends who's already been doing this. She was like the first online yoga teacher. She was like, finally, let me help you do this, because she'd been saying since we met 10 years ago, like, you need to go online. What are you doing? Her name is Briohny Duval. She lives in French Canada.
I think she was in Thailand during the teacher training as well. I think that she came for like a week or so.
Yeah, she did. So how is it doing? I think, I know it's from the outside and from someone from an industry that like really relies on in-person experiences. And also we talked about, old principles, old like stuck dogma. We're also an industry who, whether it be out of insecurity or out of fear, doesn't like change. It was scary for me. I was like, oh my God, they're going to poo-poo on it, they're going to like it. And I was like, fuck it, I'm going to do this because I really believe in it. It's not just about staying afloat as a business.
Mm-hmm.
I had thought that this was a much better way for people to learn from the get-go. And now I just launched my in-person training and I'm merging the two like I've always wanted to do.
That was my next question. Are you going to keep it? Like,
yeah.
Are you going to keep it, put them together or keep them separate?
Absolutely.
What's happening?
I'll keep them. Well, you can always take the online training without the in-person training, because we had a few thousand people graduate from it. already. And and we've just revamped our 200 hour to make it even more effective. And I just think it's not just a product. I just really think it's revolutionizing the way that new yoga teachers, experienced yoga teachers are able to digest content, because it's short form. There are some long form videos, but it's short form and succinct and broken up so that you are learning each pose, each theory, in a way that you can come back to it, because you buy it, you have access to it for a year. You can graduate in 2 months, 1 month, 3 months, get certified, and still come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you get a mentor and you get the ability to ask questions. It's not just yoga theory, it's business, it's pranayama, it's practice, it's teaching, it's cueing, it's sequencing, it's everything. So with the in-person, the online is a prerequisite. As I said, I've always thought it was the better way, so that when we come together, I've shortened my in-person so it's more affordable for people. Because let's be honest, 26 days, 25 days is extremely expensive and difficult to take off. So it's 10 learning days, plus it's a 2-in-1. So when you buy the in-person, you get the online.
Cool.
And all of
I love
the
that.
things with it.
Have you
I know,
already
I'm super
announced?
excited.
Have you already? I saw the pre-announce on Instagram. this
I
is
mean,
gonna.
we literally launched it today. It went live today.
I love that. This video is
scary,
gonna come
but it's
out
fun.
on Monday, so like in a couple of days. But
Yay! Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exciting. I've always been scared of doing things differently, but then I've always done them a little bit differently. So here we go. I believe in it. That's the
I'm
most
so excited for you. This is like the next chapter. I love that.
Yeah, seriously.
I really love
It's
it.
fun.
Amazing. And where's gonna be the next in-person teacher training? I haven't been online
Still in
yet.
Thailand. I love Thailand. I'm half Thai.
Same place?
No, I moved to Phuket.
Okay.
Yeah. Mainly, I mean, a number of different reasons. I know, yoga teacher training centers have a certain vibe to them, and I'm a bit older now and I always bring my kids, and I just wanted to find something that was a little bit more
Comfortable.
upscale, for lack of a better
I feel
sorry. And so, gosh, I am working with a lady who actually produced all of my early teacher trainings. She is incredible. She's she gets it. So she now manages a resort called Amatara. Every room is sea view. It's so nice, so we're very excited. And Phuket is a lot easier to get to than Koh Samui. So I wanted to make it, Thailand is far, right? So I wanted to make it accessible at least.
Oh my God. So I'm being kicked out of the studio. So we're going to have to wrap this up, but I have a bunch of more questions for you. Maybe we'll do a part 2 or something, follow up. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I hope whoever is watching and listening have found it interesting, but I found it interesting. So
thanks. You're so sweet.
At this point, who cares? Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Yeah, for joining me in this podcast.
Yay.
All right. So, and thank you guys for listening and for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm going to put all the social media and everything, all the links to your yoga school as well underneath the video and the podcast description on Spotify and all that good stuff. So guys, for sure, check it out if you're not following Bri for some reason. Yeah, please do that. And yes, thank you.
Thank you, Alina. Thank you everyone for watching. Take care.